Daksha's wife Prasuti was an ardent devotee of Adishakti, the mother deity of the universe, the feminine half of Ardhanarishvara, who had enlightened Brahma about procreation. Prasuti persuaded her husband to pray to the goddess to be born as their daughter. They performed austerities for years and finally Adishakti agreed. However, I must warn you, the goddess said, if you ever affront me, I will leave you and you shall face dire consequences. In time, Prasuti gave birth to 24 daughters and the most radiant of them all was the youngest one, the incarnation of Adishakti. Daksha named her Sati and the first word she uttered was Shiv. Sati had grown into an alluring woman, an incarnation of Adishakti. She refused every suitor her parents approved for her. With the Prajapati attempting esteemed alliances, her continuous refusal had begun to peeve him. When he finally asked her whom she wished to marry, Sati uttered the name she had been chanting since childhood, Mahadev. Daksha erupted. He had not forgotten how Shiva had decapitated his father Brahma, how he had pronounced him unworthy of worship, how he had alleviated his curse on Chandra. Recently, the destroyer had again incensed the Prajapati. Daksha had entered Brahma's assembly and everyone had stood up out of respect. Everyone but Shiva. A furious Daksha had laid down a cardinal rule. Shiva is not civilized enough to mingle with gods. Henceforth no one shall invite that uncouth to any gathering. The destroyer's mount Nandi had instantly retorted, Mahadev is not concerned with worldly rituals. Anyone abusing him can only be an animal. Check your words, Prajapati, or you may soon end up looking like one. But Sati had no inkling of these events. All she knew was that she was existing only partially and Shiva alone could complete her. Retiring to the forest, she started severe austerities to win over the god. So fiercely did her soul burn for Mahadev that the ice on Kailash began to melt. Overwhelmed by her love, Shiva consented to make her his bride. Daksha fumed, but Brahma intervened. Sati was born for Shiv. He roams around in animal hide, smokes hemp, smears ash, rides a bull and wears a snake. How can a princess live with a hermit? He is a free spirit. Their union is natural law. You cannot keep them apart. Don't you remember how Shiva shamed you? Shamed you not once, but twice. He argued more and more, but Brahma declared that the marriage was inevitable. The Prajapati knuckled under his father's will, and it came to pass that as a couple circled the holy fire, something burned and died inside Daksha. I shall show them their place. No sooner had Sati and Shiva settled into conjugal bliss than news arrived that the Prajapati was going to organize a grand yajna at Kankhala. All the gods would be invited, all the sages would be honored, the choicest oblation would be offered and enormous merit would be earned. Sati was rapturous. The prospect of seeing her parents and sisters filled her with joy, and she began to make preparations. Days passed, but no invitation landed at her door. Neither did Daksha arrive, nor her mother, not even a priest or a messenger. Gradually her delight gave way to dread. She no longer ventured out in the morning or fell asleep at night lest she missed her summons. Her eyes were afloat with hope, but her heart had begun to sink with every passing hour. Shiva barely uttered a word. The day of the yajna arrived and Sati watched the gods leaving for Kankhala, where they taunting her as they passed, or were they pitying her that she had become an outcast for Daksha? Why is father doing this? She broke down before her husband. How can he not invite his own daughter? Invite every deva and not you, who are Mahadeva? Prajapati's hatred for me has singed his love for you. For him, you are no longer his daughter, only my wife. A father can never hate his own child. I must go and speak to him. You are not welcome there, Sati. An unwanted person is always disgraced in such assemblies. Besides, your presence will stir negative emotions in Prajapati, which will contaminate his yajna, render the whole ceremony futile. Harm may even befall you, and there won't be anyone to protect you. Harm? Her eyes widened. What harm can come to me in my own house, in the presence of my own family? I cannot let this injustice pass. You say my father hates me, but he will love me again when I stand before him. Shiva tried to deter her again, but Sati was adamant. Finally, the god instructed Nandi to carry her to Kankhala. Sati arrived at the yajna and stood aghast. While her mother Prasuti embraced her, Daksha was displaying nothing but contempt. Even her sisters were scorning her for showing up uninvited, mocking her for the wild flowers she has bedecked herself with. The ceremony side further heightened Sati's pain. All the gods were present, but no seat had been assigned for Shiva. No share of oblations had been reserved for him. No mantras featuring his name were being chanted. The yajna had boycotted the destroyer, and no one was protesting, not even Brahma and Vishnu. As Nandi shed silent tears, Sati confronted her father. How can you conduct this yajna without the presence of Mahadeva? I see gods and demons here, yakshas and gandharvas, even souls and spirits. Why have you barred your own son-in-law? Because he belongs to none of these categories, the Prajapati cackled. He is neither divine nor demonic, neither a human nor an animal, inferior to every creature, the lowest form of life. Has he sent you here to beg for an invitation? You are insulting my husband, father? Yes, the husband you took against my wish. Look around, my civilization celebrates culture, rites and customs. It has no place for that anarchist, the half-naked addict who remains indifferent to what we have so painstakingly created. You died the day you married him, and the dead are no longer invited. Disbelief seared Sati's face. Her tone was wounded as she spoke. You who condemned Chandra for what he did to your daughters are condemning your own daughter today? My own shunning me today? Mahadeva was right. I shouldn't have come to this place, this yajna where Brahma Vishnu sit silently while Shiva is being reviled. Have you both forgotten that you are triumvirate, agents of the same supreme will? Isn't the Prajapati abusing you by abusing my lord? Or has your hunger for these oblations gagged you both? How dare you? Daksha raised his hand as if to strike her. They are worthy, unlike your Shiva. They both engage, one creates and other preserves. But your husband rejects. He blights Parampita Brahma, but blesses the demons with Mrita Sanjeevani. Why should I include him when he has excluded himself from us? I have nothing but hatred for him. You do not hate him, Sati snarled. You fear him. You fear that you cannot tame him, that he doesn't conform to anything you have designed. Hence a pariah who doesn't deserve my ceremony, not even the leftovers of my ceremony. Enough! The assembly froze. It was the deity. He got up from his seat. Any yajna that maligns Mahadeva is a blot on the face of Brahmand. Sitting here will be a sin now, and I shall not be a sinner. As he left, Prasuti screamed, All eyes had been on the Dadichi, and no one had noticed that Sati was standing now by the edge of the sacrificial fire. "I cannot live like this, sage," she said as tears flooded her face. "I can no longer go back to Mahadev as Sati. This body is a curse. Being Prajapati's daughter is a curse. My lot has been shamed today because of me, because I'm Daksha's seed. I must destroy this identity, this body of mine. Only then I can truly reunite with him. Only then will you comprehend the true meaning of Shiva. Your yajna has no offering for my Lord, so I offer myself. Forgive me, Mahadev, forgive me." Her father gnashed his teeth. "Stop chanting his name, you're polluting my altar." "Vile Daksha," Sati roared, her eyes inflamed now, her voice scalding. "You forget that I am Adishakti, born to you and Prasuti because you both had invoked me. I had warned you that the day you dishonor me, I shall disown you." The gathering recoiled as Sati leapt into the fire. As her flesh burnt, terrible omens began to manifest. The skies turned dark, vultures swooped and jackals howled. The wind screeched like an angry spirit, blowing out every flame. As Sati took her last breath, Shiva's eyes sprung open, quaking with pain and fury. He wrenched a strand of hair off his head and hurled it, hitting the ground. It sparked a horrific being with 3 eyes and 1,000 arms named Veerbhadra. He bowed as Shiva commanded him. "Tear Daksha's yajna to pieces." Moment later, everyone at the ceremony was fleeing in horror. Veerbhadra had spawned more terrifying entities from the pores of his skin, and they were wreaking havoc, maiming gods, killing humans, urinating on oblations and spilling blood, torching the place and frolicking with the ashes. All that was feral in Brahmanda seemed to have pounced upon the yajna. Bhrigu brought forth warriors called Ribhus to counter, but in vain. Veerbhadra's army was relentless like a boulder in motion, grinding the ceremony to dust. The ice of Kailasha was choking the flames of Kankhala. Daksha pleaded with Vishnu now to use his Sudarshana, but the god refused. Veerbhadra is an energy of Shiva himself, a potent as my chakra. If they both collide, the universe will explode. Before the Prajapati could utter any word, Veerbhadra charged. Seizing Daksha by the hair, he hacked his head and tossed it into the fire. The gods realized that the Dadichi's curse had come true. "You shall face the wrath of Mahadeva, each one of you." The yajna had been defiled, and this was highly inauspicious. Consequences of the 3 realms would be devastating now. Brahma and Vishnu were consulted, and their verdict was unanimous. Mahadev must be pacified. Only he can revive Daksha to complete the ceremony. The god rushed to Shiva and prostrated themselves, sought his forgiveness, and brought him to Kankhala. Since Veerbhadra had burnt Daksha's head, the destroyer asked them to find a substitute. Finally, a ram's head was implanted on Prajapati's body, proving Nandi's words true as well. He who had called Shiva beastly had been reanimated using a beast. The destroyer now foretold that Daksha would soon be reborn on earth in his true form. The yajna was accomplished and merit ensured. Suddenly, tremors began passing through Brahmanda. The universe was shuddering as if someone was pounding on it without mercy. The 2 halves of the cosmic egg appeared on the verge of cracking. The assembly rushed out to see and stood catatonic. Shiva was dancing with Sati's charred corpse slung over his shoulder, his eyes bloodshot, his face livid, his limbs writhing, his body frailing, pulsating with the savage choreography that wanted to crush everything to death. The Rudra Tandav. Mahadev was wailing, mourning the death of his love. all eyes turned toward Vishnu to save the cosmos. The preserver realized Sati's remains were torturing Shiva, scorching the yogi with the flames of Maya, weighing upon the Kapali like 1,000 skulls. Vishnu hurled the Sudarshana. As the destroyer gyrated, the chakra dismembered Sati's corpse into 51 pieces. One by one fell at various locations across the earth, giving rise to Shakti Peeths. Shiva halted. The weight was off his body, but his heart was still heavy. He walked away. He was alone again.